Let's go.
Hi, my name is Tony Saunders.
And I'm Helen Savor.
This is the show where we get the insider scoop on new third-party material supplements on Pathfinder Infinite.
Welcome to
Welcome to Infinite Reviews with
your
Infinite
Insiders.
Insiders.
Today we're here with Conner. Welcome.
Meowdy. Glad to be here.
Our very first intro. I think we did okay.
Yeah, nailed it.
We nailed it. Yeah,
so
we're gonna go with that.
So Conner,
Great to have you, Conner.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for being here with us as we do this. But what inspired you to be here on Pathfinder Infinite? What inspired you to be writing?
Yeah.
So actually, Team Plus and the Classes Plus series is actually one of the biggest things that inspired me to create for Pathfinder Infinite. Derry, one half of the writing team, I've been friends with them for a bit, and I thought it was really cool to see another queer artist creating stuff in the third party scene, and I essentially had a moment where I was like, wait, that's really cool. I could do that too. And Derry does a lot of the drawing and the writing and stuff too. So I was like, hey, that seems like something I could do as well. And I'm also really, Tony also, because I helped sort of play test some of the stuff for Classes Plus, and Tony sort of gently encouraged me with some of this stuff early on.
I think, I think I've heard it. Team Plus, you said? It's a new one for me. But yeah, no, I think I knew very early on in the playtest that you were gonna be very good at this. Your insights, when you brought them up, quite a few times, it was when I heard it, I just knew it was true. Because you would always bring up a potential problem, but you wouldn't necessarily tell me what needed to be fixed about it, or even that it was an easy thing to fix. But they were always brilliant insights. So I'm not shocked to see you come as far as you have, because I believe, don't you have a new title? That's what I think I heard.
I do. I'm an Infinite Master now, which I'm very surprised, because I mentally just assumed it would take a lot longer to get there.
I think it's very telling of how fast did you kind of climb up the charts with your new things? You just hit the ground running. That's
true. I think one of the ones we're about to talk about today, you hit Electrum pretty quick.
I did.
And it takes, Pathfinder Infinite's grown a lot, in especially the last year, but I still think that your timetable, you pulled it off, and it's pretty impressive. For good reason, but still very impressive.
Yeah. Let's take a look at this cover, or at least the blown up part that we have, and we're going to see this as we scroll through. Your art is beautiful. Is there any, and this is it. This is Conner's art. He drew this. He's not just the author. He did this. So is there anything that you do to try to make your art suit your Pathfinder projects? Or, I'm going to scroll so we can see more art. So you just keep talking.
Yeah, go for it. So a lot of this is sort of just done in my normal style that I do commissions and other art projects in. But I try to make sure that even when I'm working in my own style, that it's still somewhat more accurate. So if I'm drawing a goblin, I want to make sure it looks like the Paizo Pathfinder goblins, for instance. A lot of stuff like that I try to do just because, I don't know, I feel like it kind of helps make it look really cohesive and such. It usually takes me a decent while to do all the art. It's a lot of work doing all the art and writing and everything on your own, so it takes a bit, but it definitely just depends on how much how much art is going to be in it, because for Minotaurs, that one is definitely, I did a lot of art for it, whereas for one of my other projects I didn't do quite as much art because I just didn't need to do as many art pieces for it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I do sometimes though, just to kind of help expedite my processes, I'll do sketches and just kind of put the sketches in as placeholders while I'm doing a lot of the early writing, just to kind of place down the roughs for everything before I refine it all, whether it's through the editing process or, just coloring everything
how often do you think the sketches kind of map too close to the concept that ends up happening, or does it change when you make that transition?
Most of the time, they've been fairly close. There's definitely been a few times where I've like changed the design somewhat, but usually they don't stray too far. Like one of the Minotaurs, you can probably see them. Um, the Ghost Bull Minotaur with the white hair. She initially, like, her hair was entirely different and the clothes were different, and
Huh.
the pose was pretty similar, but I just wasn't entirely satisfied with like certain elements of it, so I just ended up changing it. Um, and the cover is usually the thing that I do last because it just kind of takes a lot of time.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
That's
Yeah.
Derry's process too, by the way. Usually,
Really?
it doesn't always, but usually does not cover last as well.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Realistically, I probably should do the cover earlier just because it does take so much time, but you know.
I mean, I feel like you nailed the cover for sure, and yeah, as can be seen, the art is just fire. I love your lines. Like, there's like the dark line approach with the vibrant colors really
Mhm.
pops. Even the Ghost Bowl, like, still, despite it being
Mhm.
very very white centric, it does still
Mhm.
pop very much with the
Yeah.
face and the.
That's one of the things that they always kind of teach us in art school is you want to be very careful about using too many like pure blacks and pure whites and
Mhm.
stuff. So like a little trick you'll do is you'll take the white or the black color and you'll actually just essentially put a little bit of another color in it. So like for the Ghost Bowl lady, like I'm pretty sure her
Little-
hair is very very close to white, whereas her skin tone
Little
is
gray.
like slightly tinted blue.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of tricks your brain just
Oh,
a
sorry.
little bit
Mhm.
without like you looking at her and being like, oh, she's blue. So there's like cute little tricks like that you
Oh,
can
'cause
do. And I
it's
did a very similar thing with
right next to the blue.
the black
Mhm.
furred one on the left, where
Mhm.
it's a very very dark purple, not quite black, but it reads as black.
Mhm. Oh, the eyes are weird.
They are. Color is a confusing and fascinating thing.
We
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
we need to do a whole stream of just art sometime.
I mean, hey, that could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Helen, we have a pretty close relationship with this first book, don't we?
Yes,
We have we had a little fun at TPK with.
that's right. So we were doing build a character, and we were picking from different things, and we realized we didn't have a lot of ancestry options. So we said, let's just do all Minotaurs. But we decided to do different type of Minotaurs, and I almost thought about bringing the Minotaur characters for this. Tony, we should have done that.
Yeah, we could have done that for sure. I love mine. I got forced into Sorcerer Melee.
Yeah,
Chat was cool that day.
that's
Yeah.
I was like, we don't have anybody. I was like, I guess I could try to play a melee. What class? And
Yep.
I was like, well, whatever. I got horns, right? Like, that's a start.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are a lot of really wacky concepts. I think I remember one of them being like, I think it was a miniature Minotaur, but they were like the symbiote third party class or something.
Oh, I think
Also,
so.
like,
Yeah.
I think they were like also
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an herbalist or like a flower garden like planter or something. It was really wacky, but I love wacky things, so that like I was enjoying just sitting there.
It was
Just being
great.
cool.
The stuff we
Yeah, I
came
think
up with
it
an
was
hour
fun.
was so much fun.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, sometimes making characters and just kind of throwing stuff around and just kind of being random with it can make some really fun concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did to approach this, Minotaurs Unleashed that made it so, amazing to actually get to like play through it? Because I had a blast with my character. So, what were you thinking going into this?
Honestly, what I wanted to do going into this was like, I saw a need, a sort of a void to be filled where I was like, I love Minotaurs, but Pathfinder doesn't really have them yet. And sure, I could just reskin like an orc or something or reflavor an existing ancestry, and like, yeah, that'd be fine. But I felt like, I don't know, I think they're really cool, and I really love how like Pathfinders 2 has really kind of taken some of the ancestries from first edition that maybe didn't always get the best reputation and sort of found ways to really breathe life into them, like the panels, for example, in the Marvel
Oh,
Expanse
yeah.
book, I really, really love how
Mm-hmm.
they, like, without really even contradicting, like, any of the pre-existing lore, they, like, kind of sort of fixed their reputation by showing that there's, like, a variety in their culture and, like, many different kinds. And, like, I don't know, I just thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, like, how it all started, along with me just sort of, like, pondering, like, oh, I mean, like, I guess I could do this, and Ancestry wouldn't be that difficult, surely. I was foolish. It is actually a lot more work than I thought. A great learning experience, to be sure, but yeah, whew, a lot.
I mean, I think you did a pretty, I mean, a bang up job. Like I think that not only is the material balanced, it feels very Paizo-esque. Not only in that mechanical way, but also in the way that you describe about the null stuff. So I can definitely see that coming through in this work. We clearly spent a lot of time on it. The production quality alone is very good. And like, look right on the jumped out page, right? Minotaur uncommon at the top, and you come right in to this. Look at this! You stole my heart already. Like this Minotaur is like, he's gotta be. I would say he looks, like a sailor probably. Like, maybe they. I could say they may be a captain. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, no, like when I was designing some of the characters, even if I didn't have like necessarily like a full-on like name and story for them, I like when I was like figuring out what I wanted for the project, I essentially was kind of like being like, okay, I want to represent like a variety of the different heritages and like different cultures they can like that you'll find Minotaur cultures in. And one of them was like Absalom, and I was like, well, there's a lot of ships that go through there, so maybe, whether or not they're a captain or just like maybe a bodyguard or something. I feel like this guy, he definitely
or a pirate,
on a ship.
maybe a pirate,
or just like a pirate. Yeah. I mean, I definitely knew just kind of vaguely what I wanted for him, but the specifics, not quite. But hey, it was definitely very fun to draw, though.
I gotta say, I was selfish about that. What you even thought about minor things in society making a big difference, but the line, most Minotaurs, regardless of the culture, find muscular builds attractive on any gender, and their horns are seen as a sign of pride. But just coming out and saying, this is what Minotaurs feel about that. So I don't know. For me, that hit in the feels. I'm not sure how everybody else feels, but the fact that you considered how that was for people, so I love that.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely. When I went into it, I thought about it a decent bit, just because, like, obviously, like, female cows don't typically have horns, and like male cows do, and like there was like a brief moment where I was like, how, like, would there be any weird like societal like things? But the more I thought about it, the more I just kind of was like, I don't want to overcomplicate it. And honestly, I feel like the way that like the way that like orcs do it, where it's like strength is like just sort of like a cornerstone of their society in many ways, I honestly felt like, I feel like that fits for them too. I feel like, and also just, I have always definitely had a pet peeve when it comes to like games like, say, WoW or something, where like you'll have a fantasy race where like the men are super beefy and bulky and the women are like extremely thin, and I'm like, great, like, come on, let the women be beefy and muscular, come on. So like, that was also partially just me being very much like, no, make them beefy. I mean, obviously, feel free to do with your character what you want, but I was just like, nah, this is they want the muscles.
Who to blame? Look at that ghost bowl. I mean, swoon, right? I mean, just instantly.
I've definitely got a lot of compliments from people finding the Minotaurs very attractive, and I am very glad, because I am a self-indulgent person, and if I'm going to be drawing stuff, I'm gonna make it fun. And sometimes I'm just like, hey, I think Minotaurs are hot, so I'm gonna make lots of hot Minotaurs for this book. Like, be totally blunt.
What, are you gonna not make them hot? I mean, obviously. I mean,
exactly.
It's the right play to make.
For real. Yeah, like I know what my audience is gonna partially be, and it's gonna be furries, so I'm gonna cater to them at least a little.
Got to be the beast.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's check out this stat block a little bit here, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like so horns. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I notice. I noticed that. So it looks like size medium. Is that is so? It. I imagine that was a decision that had to be made, right? You had to decide where to land on that.
Yeah, size definitely, like, I had to go back and forth on that a lot when I first started, because in Pathfinder 2nd Edition lore, Minotaurs, at least all the ones that we've seen so far, and when they've been written and stuff, they've been large-sized, but in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, we haven't really seen any large-sized ancestries from level 1 yet. We've seen a few that like get the capability to increase their size later, but none that start there. And I didn't really feel like it was partially like I didn't want to push things too much for my first product, being like, because I feel like I might look a little amateurish, like I don't really pay attention to existing conventions, but
don't want to break precedence again, with come out too much.
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's very close actually to the way Battles would handle dragons. So I mean, not that you can necessarily.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, because like in a similar way with them, it's like you don't start off as like a crazy big dragon with all of your things, but you get there eventually, and like you can start off with some of those things. And a lot of
absolutely
express that flavor and kind of help to fulfill that like fantasy, which is basically what I want to try to do here. And like, people, for instance, in like D&D 5e, Minotaurs are medium sized, and people never really had a problem with that. They're just really tall, and I'm like, that'll probably work here too. Maybe some Minotaurs are just really tall and really big, and they're just not quite large sized yet. That's fine.
I mean, yeah, I think that you packed a lot of the feels of being a larger creature into the options that they can pick anyway. So I definitely feel like you did enough to still definitely give that Minotaur feel, even if you aren't, writing a capital L, large creature in front of your your stat.
Still very in charge.
Yeah,
exactly.
And like I did include that little sidebar on the side, as you can see, with like if your GM wants, they can allow you to start large, just like with a few like things to keep in mind, where like you're bigger, your reach is still 5 feet, and like the feats a little bit later interact slightly differently to accommodate it. But I made that more of an alternative than a default, just because like, if your DM's cool with it and like they're willing to accommodate it, it shouldn't be that bad. But like again, I didn't want to have it be the default, just so that way it could, be sort of a thing to incorporate.
I mean, that's totally that. I also love how the title is worded basically like a Discord message.
Yeah.
Like,
no, really.
That's exactly how you'd see it in chat medium, not large.
Yeah. No, because that was one of the things I was fully expecting people to like question that more, and I'm honestly surprised that people didn't. So I was like, I mean, maybe it's because I have that sidebar, but who knows?
I'm sure it helps.
They're like, I'll allow it. That makes sense. The sidebar, clever. So going through the document, like I love that you spent like the actual time to do, like the full, descriptions of like where they come from.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of backstory on it, because I feel like in a lot of ancestry supplements, not to say, hey, that reading flavor text isn't a lot of fun, but I do see a lot of people kind of skimp on that. They don't necessarily go the whole 10 yards. So I do appreciate not only that you went all the way down, you did the names, like you got and you did sample names, good ones too. You got a alignment religion section. Like this is, this would be how Paizo would fill out an ancestry section. So
yeah,
I have to give you props.
Thank you. That was another one of the goals. Like it wasn't just like I'm gonna make Minotaurs playable, but I also was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it good. I want to make it like as close to professional quality as I can do within my means. Obviously, I'm not Paizo, but I wanted to essentially emulate a lot of that and be like, this is my chance to sort of also just squeeze in a lot of that sort of Minotaur reputation, I guess, revising, whatever. You know what I mean? Basically, I wanted to try to squeeze in as much of that, like, hey, look, they are interesting and they're cool, and like maybe not like hashtag quirky and unique and in like totally different ways, but at the very least, like they are not just all crazy and like evil or something. 'Cause that's we all smart here. We all know that's like kind of lazy writing. So I wanted to really avoid that and really push against that with this. And the more I went into it, the more I like ended up researching a bunch of things that I had a lot of fun with, like a lot of the stuff for Iblados.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got to dig into some really obscure 1E lore, as well as like Greek culture and Minoan culture, which was like a lot of fun.
I definitely can tell. I mean, there's a lot of Greek energy coming from even the fonts in places. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
The design.
Yeah, the cover font was it was a royalty-free font, but I think it's literally called Caesar dressing.
Nice.
Gonna go.
That's
Oh,
pretty-
don't want to ruin the stream. Gonna go look that up later.
Yeah, no, I definitely wanted to have that be on the cover, because even though Minotaurs can come from different places other than just Iblados, which is
Sure.
like the fantasy Greece,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like it's a significant enough part that I didn't mind spotlighting it.
I mean, it's the
That's very-
origin of the original creature, right?
Mhm.
So you gotta
Yeah.
give that extra little mind, and that
Exactly.
it makes sense here for sure.
Yeah, and that ended up just sort of becoming a whole thing where I got to play around a lot with Iblados, because not a lot about it has been written quite yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it made it, like, on one hand, a little bit intimidating because I didn't have a ton of resources to work with, but what was there I kind of just expanded on in as much of a way that felt realistic, and I had fun with it, because I got to, you'll probably see it later in the document, which you can touch on later, but there's like even a whole god that like I had no idea existed until I was doing my research on this.
I'm just gonna pull it up now.
Yeah,
we're talking
really,
about
I
it.
really have fun with it. Yeah, no, I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Iafoli or something. Child of
I accept that.
Bloodstone.
I don't know.
They're just a really interesting god.
Mhm.
They like got a write up in like the last book of Tyrant's Grasp when they were doing all those like developer like showcase things, just a bunch of random miscellaneous different things, and like it was just a really interesting concept to stick out to me, because essentially it was like, hey, in Iblados we got all these like creatures of myth like centaurs and minotaurs and
Mhm.
harpies and stuff, and all of the heroes here, they essentially treat these creatures like challenges to be overcome, and paths to their mythic ascension, so to speak. And understandably, some of them might not love that idea, and that's like kind of where the original Iafoli came from. And apparently like there's a city called like Droxley or something that
Mhm.
like is essentially just a city of monster folk and all of that. And I don't know, there's just a lot of really interesting stuff there that, even though there wasn't a ton initially written about it, I was like,
Mhm.
I think that is extremely fascinating, and I want to
Those
like
threads.
dive into like how might even like minotaurs fit into this city with all these different monsters, and how might maybe even their own like people disagree on stuff, because that was another element of like the lore that they sort of touched upon, is that like even though it's a city of monster folk, they're still kind of in a bit of disagreement on how to handle things. Like, do they want to simply like mind their own business and live in peace, or do they want revenge for all of their like fallen brethren against those humanoids that have essentially just killed them and stuff? And it's like I thought it would be like I could see minotaurs also kind of being like split on that matter. So
Mhm.
it was just interesting to kind of really get into really obscure stuff, because like again, I feel like this is just a god that nobody knows about, and that's fine, because they are kind of just they're in packed away in the back matter of like a book that not everybody's going to have. But I thought they were fascinating, and I really hope we get to see more of them again someday.
It's great that you went to that depth in here. Like, I've never heard of this. Like you said, I'm not sure other people have. And just because we can write in, the Galorian lore here, it's still nerve-wracking to find those corner cases. So thank you for
really
unearthing
is.
it.
Yeah, no, and I don't know. I find it almost like an entertaining challenge to like write within those constraints. Like, even though I obviously definitely could maybe push myself a little bit more to like go outside the box and do tons of new things, I do still find it really cool to sometimes look at like what's there and hasn't been like really fleshed out, and being like, oh, well, how could this like be developed in a way that would feel like interesting or normal, or I don't know, just like there's just stuff like that. Because like part of what I wrote for EFOLI was just kind of me rewriting in my own words what was already written, but there was some extra stuff there, like going in a little bit more depth on the divisions in the city or things like about the Bloodstones in their name, because like that was something that really confused me. Like they're called the Child of Bloodstone, and like that makes me think of Erasmus's Bloodstones.
Yeah, I know,
like,
exactly.
Zero connection whatsoever.
That was.
And I could not figure out for the life of me why that was. So I ended up just kind of deciding that, like, there isn't a connection between them and Erasmus. It's just a coincidence. Because, like, when I was doing research on, like, the actual mineral bloodstone, I found out that, like, you know, they can be seen as, like, a good luck thing. And, like, I also saw some parallels, I think, in, like, Christianity about, like, how the blood in the bloodstone is supposed to, like, symbolize, like, I think, like, Jesus' blood or, like, whatever. And I was like, oh, well, considering the origins of EFOLI's, like, past reincarnations, that would maybe fit. So I sort of smushed a few of those real-world bloodstone ideas together into this. Who knows? Maybe one day the original author of EFOLI will write more about them, and I will realize that the reason they chose the name Child of Bloodstone is entirely wrong. But hey, you know, until then, this is my theory.
I'm sold. I mean, I think that's...
Maybe they will read your theory and adopt it.
Who knows? Yeah.
It's valid.
I got to get clever with it. But yeah, that's obviously at the end of the document, so we can obviously circle back if y'all want to go over anything else.
Yeah.
I just don't want to skip through all of it.
Way ahead of where we were.
That was relevant to what we were talking about, though.
Yeah, because lore, I could talk about lore forever. I did so much research for this. Oh my goodness.
I want to talk about this cute guy with the arm here, though.
Oh.
I love the Tangle Tenders and the Tinkerer Buddy.
Yeah, no, Tangle Tender is another one of those things that was like from 1E that I feel like is really obscure. But it was like, essentially there was just like a creature stat block. It was literally just called Tangle Tender, and it was like a Minotaur that specialized in like traps and stuff. And I don't know, I thought it was like interesting because usually I feel like with these big, strong like races, you don't always like think about like the mages or like the clever, you know, trapsmiths or tinkerers and stuff. So like I wanted to incorporate a little bit of the Tangle Tenders and sort of bring those forward. As for this character, he actually is a previous character that I actually made and played in a game. His name is Damascus Steel. Very on the nose.
Nice. I dig it.
Yeah, but I've had fun with his design. You'll probably end up seeing him at some point or another on like my Twitter or anywhere else that I post my art, just because I find him entertaining to draw. Yeah, no, I think he was like an inventor, but like multi-class into alchemist. I can never decide. Both. He's just an explosive fella. So you know, both fit. But yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of fun drawing him every time I get the opportunity to. Ironically, this time around I had like a lot of trouble, but that was literally just because like I was not using references and stuff, and I was being stubborn. And then like I actually got like a good like hand. Like I took pictures of my hands to get it right, because I didn't know how to do. I didn't know how to like officially draw him screwing the screwdriver onto like the little gold ball thing. And so I just took a picture of myself doing it, and then it was like 10 times easier. Use references, fellow artists. Don't be stubborn like me.
Thank you for using human references.
Yep. It is one of those things that's always like, you're stubborn, and you're like, no, I can just do it. And then like, you get frustrated because you didn't use a reference, and then you actually like relent and then use it, and it's like 10 times easier, and it goes like way faster, and you're like, why didn't I just do this in the first place? It's process.
Yeah.
So not to dip you back into the lore tank, but
sorry.
You know, I still love that Ghost Bowl on the first TOC so much, but I'd never heard of a Ghost Bowl until I read your supplement, and then I think you said that it's based on a 1E thing as well. So clearly the dive did not end there.
Yeah, I did a lot of research for this, even though there was not a ton. Like there was like essentially like I think 8 different like old 1E books that I looked through, and like none of them were like solely about Minotaurs. Each of them would have like maybe like a little bit in each
Mhm.
one, so I ended up just doing, like, I don't know, I just ended up taking all of those little scraps and pieces that I wanted to bring forward, and you know, did that. But yeah, no,
Absolutely.
Ghost Bowls are cool. Honestly, they didn't have much written about them. If you see like the Absalom books and stuff, Noir Spirits, he's got white fur. He's probably a Ghost Bowl. So I figured that's definitely not something they're probably like writing out
Mhm.
of TUI anytime soon. So I figured, hey, I think these are neat. I'm gonna bring them forward too.
I definitely feel like them getting the ability to quote speak with spirits, and they have guidance. Like that's like a very like guidance being a representation of that is pretty cool. Like I just thought that's a very on the nose way to give a
Mm-hmm.
lot of feel with just one little addition,
Yeah,
especially as a divine innate spell. So
yeah, a lot of divine stuff with Minotaurs. Even with what little lore there was in one, they always kind of seem to be characterized as somewhat religiously inclined. So
Yeah,
I thought I'd bring that in.
good feel.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So, any words?
yeah, I don't want to keep dragging us through all of the fun real quick, but
Yeah,
you
that's
definitely did a pretty solid job on the heritage. We have Coastal, Greathorn,
mhm.
Ghost Bowl, Labyrinth, Miniature, Shaggy. And I think miniatures are a lot of fun. I love the idea of a miniature Minotaur.
Yeah, based
But
off of
just
real world miniature cattle.
yeah, that's really charming. But and even though your heritage is filled out pretty thick, it looks like we have a whole page of just first level ancestry feats with
Indeed.
with the 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 star of the show,
Yeah.
the Ghost Bowl here.
Mhm.
You're smitten with
No,
her.
no. Yeah, I'm so yeah, I really am. Smitten is the word for sure. But I am curious
Yeah.
about bovine speaker. So if you're talking, like, how do they feel? Like, I want to know the cattle on the farm. They're like, please no, help me. Like,
Yeah.
what do the
No.
Minotaur? How does the Minotaur interact in these bovine speaker situations? Because I feel like that's a really cool way to build a narrative as a GM.
It's always funny to think about these things with like whenever you have like a beast folk type like characters and then like them coming across the animal they're based on. It's always funny to think about that stuff. I feel like personally with Minotaurs, like in my mind, I feel like they wouldn't be necessarily against like farm animals being like kept and taken care of as long as they're being properly taken care of and not like abused. But like if they came across like a bad farmer that was like being like mean to his cattle or something, I feel like they definitely probably would be like, rise up, brothers, we will rebel. But if they were being treated well, I feel like it'd be a pretty they'd be chill with it because there's ways to treat your animals well. Yeah, no, there's a lot of feats.
No, and I love that you kind of like touched on, you grab the lore feat, Minotaur lore. So I feel like that and the familiarity, they're classics. Don't hurt them. And I love the weapons that you chose for familiarity: spears, battle axes, great axes, crossbows, and heavy crossbows. Very, very, myth appropriate, I would say. So that's pretty great. But you don't go too far away from like a lot of the themes that you kind of established. It looks like if you wanted to be that sailor, that seafaring, like that's an option. You can also move quickly with cloven speed. Like there's some really good pieces in here. I have to say though, like page 2 of the feats where we get into the fifths, like there's some really cool ones in here. Like I think Powerful Charge is hard to turn down, but Labyrinth Mask does sound cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
That's fair. Yeah, no, there's a lot of things. Ancestry feats are interesting to write because like you can come up with a lot of ideas, but it can sometimes be like hard to figure out where to place them or like what might be too much or too little. And it was definitely like a line I had to straddle. I definitely wanted to make sure that there was like support for like the horn like, you know, focused Minotaurs, and then like the mask thing was just sort of like a nod to, again, one new lore with like some Minotaurs and like Baphomet's Labyrinth that have their own masks, and I was like, you know, that could be an interesting thing to do a nod to.
I mean, I think that these are all like really strong installments of building like your fields. Like I feel like the fifths is where the flavors really have to come through, because in ones you have to be kind of limited on what you can give people. But
yeah, it's a lot of pretty baseline.
You have to bring some heat, because at 5th level it has to be good enough as an ancestry option to compete with like your main options at 5th. And I feel like all of these, they fit in like that smooth little glove of just, you know, right into your character concept based on which one you probably picked. It still has like an impact at 5th.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm just thinking about it because I'm like looking at it. But fun fact, it's for like things like Swift Swimmer and all the seafaring stuff, cows are actually surprisingly good swimmers. That was something I didn't know before I started researching, and that's part of why I lead into it.
Wow, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I would not have thought about it myself, but apparently they are decent at it. So, you know, more you know.
Yeah, this is you know, this supplement is accurate, folks. It is
learning so much.
IRL.
This is why I need to game with the kids, so you can learn things.
Yeah.
I think gonna come along, because we would be remiss if we didn't talk about, there's something complex coming up, but I think we need to talk about this capstone one. Ivory Invocation. Can you step us through this? Because
that one's a doozy.
We can't miss out.
Yeah, no, that one took me a while, actually, and Tony can attest to this. It went through a complete revision thanks to him. This is not a dig at you, because the initial concept was, I mean it, the original concept was like fine, but kind of simple and boring, and you were like, you know, this is okay, but I feel like you could push it. You could really, like, you know, with that extra page count, that little extra, you know, effort put into it, I feel like you could really capture what you're going for here. And I was like, all right, bet, I'm gonna do it. And then I ended up writing probably one of the most like longest feats that I think I have done so far. It's even with my other
what's the
projects,
word
it's still
count
probably
on
one of
this?
the weirdest things I've made.
Now I want to count it. Hold on.
It's super. No, I mean, I think there's a time and a place, and we talked about this a little bit when you were writing it the first time. But like, there's a do it right or don't do it at all, and you did it right. So there you go, like problem solved, right?
And I definitely sometimes have the tendency, as I mentioned earlier, to sometimes like not think outside the box as much as I could when like doing stuff. And like in this case, I'm really glad you kind of pushed me to, because like it wouldn't have come out like it did, where the original implementation is essentially just like a nerfed version of the maze spell, but like that's like okay. Like mazes are like a thing for Minotaurs, but as you kind of brought up, it doesn't really capture that like Minotaur fantasy of being like in the maze chasing someone down and like, you know, kind of putting them on the defensive, or like you kind of like hunting them down. And then like this weird powerful invocation sort of sought to capture that, and because it's like a big capstone, it was like, all right, you know, if I'm gonna put a huge wall of text, it might as well be here. So in simple terms, just because I know, you know, we don't have like all the time in the world, essentially you teleport you and another creature, you know, to an extra dimensional space, and you each essentially get a unique action where, you know, they move through the labyrinth, and then you can essentially just follow them through it. And in a similar way to the like maze spell, you know, they gotta try to make checks to escape properly, and if they don't do so good, then they might just like get themselves lost and all that. So like it's still kind of similar to what we've seen before, but a little bit more abstracted in the sense that you're sort of just given chase and kind of stuff like that. I initially was like, should I include like a map for this or something? And I was like, no, this is getting a little too out of hand. I think it's fine to keep it a little abstract for this, and I'm going to make it uncommon so that if people don't want to have to deal with this wall of text in the middle of their games, they don't have to.
I mean, I'm biased, but I do like it a lot, and I think, like you said, you stayed close enough to the maze spell that you feel like you're playing in the same playground is just a different ride, and it does feel, like you're a Minotaur in a labyrinth, and you've brought someone else to your domain. Like this is
so evocative.
Where I,
Yeah.
the bighorn, right?
Yeah, it's like your cool anime moment where you're like, all right, I've unleashed my power.
This is the named spell. Like it appears across, like it
Yeah.
Ivory invocation, like it's across.
No, for real. I still love that name, even if the ability was lame.
Good.
I'm just like, that's a cool name.
It's perfect.
Ivory Labyrinth, Ivory Invocation.
We got to bring those 4 Minotaurs back, get them up to level 17 somehow, so we can do this.
Heck yeah. I mean, slightly off topic, but there's that one Dark Archives case files that takes place in Iblados, and I'm like, I kind of want to like run that sometime, just to give people an excuse to play a Minotaur.
Yeah.
That's pretty great, actually. I would Dark Archive and Minotaur together, like.
It's a good mix.
Yes, please. That's
Yes.
a brilliant idea. I love this book, like top to bottom. I mean, even if we go back into, the 9s, the 13s, and the 17s, this is where you start to get like, your horns start to come in a little bit stronger, your seafaring comes in a little better. Ghost Bull, you can get augury and spirit sense, like that is super cool. So this book, I got it day one. I could not. I knew that labyrinth feat was going to be in there. I was like, okay, well, that's happening. But I really hope other people, see the brand new Infinite Master, Connor's work, in the Infinite store, and just can't help but get it, because you are getting quality for sure. And it has Path Builder support too, right? Correct?
It does. And Foundry. Which took a long time to learn, but I am nothing if not stubborn and dedicated to making this as good as I can get it.
Good
mission
job.
accomplished. But this is not your only book,
Yeah.
is it?
It is not. I do actually have one more.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Here we go. Pure Pen!
The cover.
Love that little gremlin.
It's
That was another
the
one that went through
best.
a bunch of differences. I always knew I wanted to do something with Periperin. I just didn't know like what yet. But
Just anything.
I love the star.
Yeah,
the star in the eye.
Exactly. I mean, hey, if I was gonna do a book specifically to capitalize on all those fancy new cooking items they released with Treasure Vault, I figured, why not include her? She deserves it.
It's so funny, like you were getting ready to put this out, and you weren't an Infinite Master yet, and I felt like I got behind on wanting to get something out for Treasure Vault. I'm like, oh my god, you got Pure Pin content out before I could, and it was awesome, and it's great, and it's not a jealous. Well, maybe it's just a 5% thing. I'm like, but that's awesome. It's like we should have retroactively made you an Infinite Master, because imagine what you could have done if you had that book 2 months sooner.
Yeah, no, I will fully admit that when some of the content creators were getting these books and doing those streams, and I think it was Nonat or someone where they were going through the cooking section, I was one of those insane people where I was pausing the stream and then unpausing it and taking screenshots, because I was like, I need every scrap of info I can, because I knew there was going to be food items at some point, and I was like, I'm not an Infinite Master though, so I'm not going to get this early, so I'm just going to do what I can. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna scrap together the info.
Well, there you go.
I can get it as ready as it can be before it's done.
Good job, sir.
It was a lot of extra work, and now I don't have to do that. Because now I'm an Infinite Master. So.
Well, let's get into it then.
Yeah.
Tell us what you got here.
Look,
a new research field.
Yeah. As you can see, like I said, I didn't have quite as much art for this one, but that's all right. And this one is definitely a little bit more mechanics focused, a little bit more. But
she's adorable.
I don't know, I've always been smitten with the idea of either food-based, cooking systems or food items and things. I don't know. I just think they're always really cool. So I just really wanted to make stuff that could really capitalize on that fantasy a bit, whether or not it's in in a game like Tales of, where you can cook meals after a fight, or like just in this game where some alchemical items have cool effects. I don't know. I've just always loved that. It's really fun.
I mean, I love cooking shows. Pretty much, I've seen anything that Gordon Ramsay's been on. I've pretty much probably watched it. I don't watch the Nightmare stuff, but I do watch any cooking competition show. So I was
fair.
Like, the second this hit the Infinite Store, I was basically like, I'm gonna buy that.
Cooking time.
Yeah, I was like, I was probably gonna buy it anyway, but I feel targeted.
Yeah.
So it is great to see that you decided to go straight for a research field. You know, giving the alchemists some love. With the culinarian, that's pretty on the nose.
Yeah, exactly. Funny, or not even fun fact, but just sort of an interesting thing is, like, when I first thought of the idea of doing alchemical food, I was like, obviously I didn't have Treasure Vault yet, but I was like, I wonder if the new food items will have like a food trait or something to make my job easier, and I can then just be like, you know, because like Bomber has the bomb trait, but no, all the food items have like a variety. Like one's a mutagen, a bunch of elixirs. There's like some lozenges. There's I think 1 or 2 poisons. Like they're all over the place, which is nice because it means that they're very versatile. But then it made me have to go, okay, how am I going to do this?
Food
and
can be
I decided,
and slashing and
whatever. I'll just have a list. I will just make a list of all the food items that have been released so far, and any that will release from here on, and I'll just update it every time because, you know, whatever. I'll do it. I can just continually errata my book and update it and just keep adding those food items as much as I want.
You can do that.
Yeah.
Well within your power.
I don't have to be quite as cautious about future-proofing it to be like anything with this trait that blah, 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 or whatever that has the ingested trait. Like, I don't have to worry about that. I can just be like, all right, food item gets added, I'm updating my book. Simple as that. Which, you know, probably is why Paizo hasn't done a cooking research field themselves yet. But hey, you know, maybe they will do one someday.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, we got another travel guide coming out someday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in your greater field discovery, what were you envisioning the magic ingredient to be?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like it could be like those like herbs they use in like the healer's gel spell catalyst or something. Because they like mention herbs or something. But I also don't know if there's like the kind that are safe to eat. I don't know. I kind of want to leave it open because who knows? Maybe it's not even like there's a special ingredient to it. Maybe it's just the fact that you're like so good at cooking that like no matter what you make, it just like tastes really good and is also good for you.
The secret ingredient is nothing. Is that what
so not garlic?
Nah, the secret ingredient is long hours of practice and perseverance to make you super good at what you do. Because you get that at like I think 13th or 15th level, you gotta be hella good at what you're doing to get there.
Man. This is anime too, then.
It's anime. It's anime top to bottom. It always is. It doesn't matter what it is.
Oh, before we scroll away, she's super cute. Sorry.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun drawing her. I like. I want to try to make my work like. Just I don't know. I don't want to like ever be somebody who is not challenging themselves, and I want to make sure like my work includes a variety of different like I don't know diversity and like representation and stuff. And one of the things I was like thinking to myself is I was like I like tieflings, but I feel like a lot of the times we always see tieflings and they seem to have like a lot of like their human side sort of overwritten by like the tiefling side or a lot of like more European or Eurocentric features. And I was like, what if we had say like a Mwangi lady and she had her tiefling heritage and she can still keep her features and stuff. And I don't know, I just thought that was really fun because drawing the hair was a lot of fun and
some good poofy hair.
Just in general, I don't know, the color scheme was really simple, but I enjoyed it. And
just outfit, to be honest.
Yeah.
Look at the no stick shoes. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I still got class. She's got the hoops. Like she's standing strong.
I like to imagine that she's like a fancy, fancy chef. Maybe she, traveled to Absalom to learn, cooking, maybe go to cooking school. I don't know if there's like a Gordon Ramsay in Absalom, but hey, like if there is, she would have probably learned under him.
some good bakers in Bopan too. And
True.
That's
Ooh.
man,
so,
yeah, Bopan.
You know, I think she's worldly enough that she's cooked in probably a few places in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
She
been
could also
to
be working under
Impossible.
that sous chef. I think it's like sous chef Silene in Next.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, she
Oh,
probably also
yeah.
went there. Actually, that probably makes more sense.
It's
I
been
gotta
3 years
do more
under,
next
under
work.
Silene.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I love getting to draw characters for this stuff because it gives me a lot of like, I don't know, a purpose to the drawings. Not that drawings
Mm-hmm.
need a purpose, but it's fun to be like, yeah, this I'm gonna make sure to include a culinary piece of art, and I'm gonna do XYZ with it, and it gives me some direction. And I feel like because of it, I've gotten to make some pieces that I'm really proud of, which I'm glad.
You should be.
Great, you should.
And I love even in the designs that were coming in, like in the book, that your attention to all parts of the game kind of comes through, because you got craft ingredients, so you're not in Kingmaker, which is appreciated. Everybody, I mean, especially with culinarian, like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, those cooking rules, so many people don't even know about them, and it's a shame because I love them. I mean, like, there's absolutely room for expansion, but like,
absolutely,
I love them, and so many people don't even know about them. And that was like part of the reason I even wanted to do this book, was to be like, I want to shine a bit of a spotlight on it, and I want to make like class options that are good at doing that, because it is so cool to be able to just like make a meal as like exploration activity or like a camping activity. Love that.
So this is subtle Kingmaker propaganda then. That's what it is.
Well, it kind of is, I guess.
It's,
well, I mean, go ahead.
Well, sorry, it was quick mind blank. This to me almost feels like a little bit of Tales of games, and I know it's because of Kingmaker. But if you're not cooking, before your battles in a Tales of series games, you're not doing it right. And this gave me those feels too.
Yeah, no, and I
want
like
a Wonder Chef,
Yes, I was very tempted to do an homage to that.
Oh man.
Maybe in the future we'll be able to an update. Who knows? But I love cooking stuff. The fact that you can get like a variety of different like enhancements or support style effects is very fun.
Yes.
And the fact that like Kingmaker book sort of mentions that like you can use these outside of Kingmaker. They don't have to be exclusively done in it. I was like, yes, you can use these outside of Kingmaker. Here is the ways you can do that.
I mean, you didn't just stop at like exploration and like sporty activities. It looks like
here.
we've come to the flambe. And
yes.
I was like, first, my big dumb brain, I was like, flambe, and then I was like, oh, there's a little. I read a little closer, and I loved it immediately. And the only question that I had was, do you think it's reasonable to do like a freeze dry, or like maybe some other kind of spin on a cooking to kind of maybe rationalize getting a frost vial instead of an alchemist fire, because I do love that.
I didn't think really about that. That's not a bad idea. I mean, like that probably would obviously fall under like your GM making that adjustment for you. But like I could see somebody like that maybe like, I don't know, reflavoring a lot of their dishes as being like ice cream style, or like more cold things, or like doing a lot of the drinks and stuff. I don't know. I feel like there could be a lot of fun things to do with that. Because I didn't think of that. I thought food for thought. I'll go for later.
Food for thought.
There are a lot of food-related puns in this. Don't even. That's more like alliteration, but yeah.
Puns, alliteration, they're all in the Paizo playbook.
Wordplay, yeah. Soothing sustenance, delicious diplomacy, all that stuff. I had fun with those.
Yeah, let's segue into that. I loved the contrast between soothing sustenance and aiding others, and iron stomach, having to tough it out yourself. It feels like those are like the two seminal experiences with food.
Yeah, no, for real. Food is so important, and it either can like make your whole day, or it can like just ruin it because you're on the bathroom the entire time. Like it's I have a very sensitive stomach, so I know that all too well.
Sorry.
But I figure if you're somebody who's working with alchemical food all the time, all those weird reagents you're putting in it, I feel like you maybe grow a stomach for that sort of thing. But be a little more resistant to it, perhaps.
Yeah, not hurt somebody's feelings at dinner. It's
Exactly.
delicious. It's so
It's delicious. Mm-hmm.
I love that
Yeah.
it allows you to eat things, even when you have this sickened condition. The saving throws are obviously the practical, not being affected by it, but being able to actually eat something while sickened is, a very overlooked thing that commonly happens with the sickened condition. And
Yeah. I actually like originally it was just the bonus to ingested stuff, and like it was kind of underwhelming, and I wanted to add on to it, and I was inspired by like actually Battlezoos like Indigo Isles player guide, where there's like a player race of like pigfolk called the Orpok that have like a bunch of food things,
Oh, that's right.
and like there was some ability somewhere in there that had a similar thing of like you can eat even while you're sickened or something, and I was like, oh, Iron Stomach's feeling a little bit underwhelming for like a 6th level feat with just like a +1 to ingested poisons, because that's like a little bit niche. They don't always come up, I feel like. So I was like, how can I maybe make that a little bit, have a little more oomph? And I was like, you know what? Letting people still being able to like use like those cool alchemical food items they're making all the time, even when they might be feeling kind of ill. I feel like that fits. I feel like that works.
yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Because damn, there's a lot of stuff that you can't do if you're sick, and like it isn't even just like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't, heal myself. It's like, damn, I really can't like use any of these cool buff items if they're like a potion or something. It sucks.
Devastating for a mutagenist, right?
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
And some of these feats probably will be useful even for non cooking related alchemists, which I'm kind of glad, because originally I was like, maybe I should like block it off being culinary and exclusive, but then I realized like actually I feel like the design space kind of is more interesting by leaving it open, where it's like they're obviously intended for this, but because alchemists are very versatile, I think anyone could pick up Iron Stomach. Mutagenists could definitely make really good use of it, as you said.
Yep.
Yeah.
So going straight down from soothing sustenance and iron stomach. Now we get to the next thing, which is manipulating others with your super
Yes.
with your super good cooking.
Hey, I mean,
which I think is a completely valid and actual thing that happens. So definitely cool to see delicious diplomacy in here.
Thank you. Yeah, no, for real. In my mind, I kind of just like imagine like an alchemist, like knowing that they're about to go into like a fancy meeting with like a diplomat or ambassador or something, or maybe they're going to be going to negotiations, and then they're just like, I'm gonna put them on my good side. I'm gonna make them a nice meal. And like again, maybe it's kind of specific and kind of niche, but I feel like it's an interesting ability, and I really liked the idea of that, so I really wanted to put it in. Like people don't always think of alchemists as being the like diplomatic ones of the party, but like there's not a reason they couldn't be. Like sure, charisma could be their dump stat, but like I mean, hey, maybe it isn't.
Yeah, what if it isn't, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's nice to see an option there. But you didn't stop at alchemist options. You gave us an archetype.
I did. The chef archetype. I had a lot of fun with that one. Not just for the art, because like I really loved basing it off of like Japanese sushi chefs and stuff, but also just like I love archetypes. They're such a fun design space to work with. Like they have their limitations, yeah, but I love that you can just like do so much with them. And I was like, these cool cooking items and like the ability to use them really well, I don't want it to only be alchemist exclusive. What about like a combat chef or somebody like that? Like you've probably seen like stuff like anime like One Piece, and like there's like a game called like Battle Chef Brigade, where like I just love the archetype of like a chef that fights. They kill their food and then they eat it or something like that. Like that stuff's always been really fun to me, so I wanted to make the chef archetype to sort of fulfill that.
Yep, definitely good to see the frying pan in there.
Yes, the frying pan item from Treasure Vault, love it.
But what about the skewers?
Skewers, that probably falls under Filcher's Forks, I think.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Ah, jeez.
Yeah,
okay, good point.
I was able to find pictures on what a Filcher's Fork looks like, so it could probably be a fork or could probably be a skewer.
Okay,
but
good, we're covered. You have it all covered.
I mean, a skewer could, I guess, also maybe like a spear or something. Or, it depends.
The teeny one.
Yeah.
I do love that you chose a cat folk for the sushi
Yes.
chef. That's very, very on the nose. I feel like they would be probably wanting to use the quick snack feed the most. Like
Oh
I don't know. I
yes.
feel like that cat looks hungry. Like I would just I'd be
Yes.
eating all the time.
I also loved giving them like doing the them holding the daggers like
Yeah.
backhand, like you see that all the time like an anime or
Oh
something
man.
with
Yeah.
knives, and I was like, they're just gonna use that with cooking knives. Like
Yeah, they mean business. So, in the vein of some of these foods, like how so like things like quick snack, right? Like that's something that is I definitely understand why it's here because it kind of really needs to be.
hmm
But there is that like those are typically like types of abilities might be protected by a class.
hmm
And in here, like you really needed to kind of. So how do you make those decisions with these feats to make sure that the right
Yeah.
options are coming through so that you can be a chef, and give them enough, I guess, to get over
Yeah. Part of what it was for Quick Snack was like obviously, like the fantasy and the fun of like, being able to fit, those meals into your action economy and like being able to make better use of them and stuff. Like part of it is like a mechanics thing, but also like, obviously like you're even saying, making those decisions, just giving them something that's like quick alchemy. How do I like properly balance that? And like I don't. At first, I was not really entirely sure, but eventually, I was like, it's okay because they don't get access to like using their quick alchemy with like the whole alchemy list. It's specifically just
it.
alchemy
Right.
with food, and there's also like that special tag where if you are leaning into the
Hmm.
whole chef weapons thing, your hands, even if they're full, like your weapons kind of count as like your alchemist's tools in this case, where you can essentially you don't have to lock yourself out of like having to choose to cook or eat necessarily. You can kind of juggle them a bit of both. It was a little hard
I
to nail the right
I
balance, but
I think you nailed it. Like I actually like I think that it's just one of those things where you can tell the person has like the good like it was the right decision to make and it looks good and
yeah,
it still looks like hey that was still a decision that was like I know it had to be hard for the writer to figure out how to make this work, so I just wanted to call out how I thought you did really well with it, and it makes for a very complete feeling in the class with the way that a lot of this is designed.
thank
It
you.
does feel like a chef. In fact, I was very excited to see this because my sibling like had played a Magus that they had themed as a chef, and that was back in the playtest when
Mhm.
you would cast message with your attacks to get like the temporary HP or whatever, and so
Yeah,
they were doing like food names while they were attacking. They were
I
like
love that.
they were like California roll, like they were like you're so
That's
ridiculous.
perfect.
Yeah,
It
but
actually
Matt
reminds me,
nailed
because
it,
like
right?
a very similar thing actually happened with me where like right before I started working on Cooking Unleashed, I was in a Pathfinder 2e game where someone was playing an investigator with like the alchemical sciences methodology, and they were essentially
Mm.
flavoring all of their alchemy things as like food. And that
Hmm.
like had me essentially kind of thinking where I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I mean like yeah, we can reflavor things, but what if we didn't have to? What if we had just like a bespoke class or like
Hmm.
archetype that could do it? And that's part of what inspired me to do it.
So
So,
a lo-
going, I was gonna say, you got some new items here at
mhm.
the
Just
end
a handful,
too.
yeah. I wanted to make sure to include at least one lozenge and one processed item, since those were the new traits they added with Treasure Vault
Mhm.
and gelatinous gummies. That, I'm surprised they weren't in Treasure Vault. It felt like a natural
Just the right amount of interesting and ick.
idea. Yeah, it makes you think a little bit, and you're like, is this safe to eat? Maybe not, but is it
Exactly.
tasty? Probably.
Small enough to
This
be enjoyed. Sweet, suave
Exactly.
flavor, but okay, some acid resistance. I would expect that from a gelatinous cube.
hmm
But since
And
so the important questions here to kind of wrap this up on the stupidest note ever. If you were a GM of a player that is engulfed by a gelatinous cube, and they are a chef of some renown, and they open their mouth, and they swallow some of the gelatinous cube, would you allow them to create a gummy within their mouth?
I don't want to be a party pooper, but to be honest, probably not, since like a gelatinous gummy, the item in my mind is like taking the ingredients of a gelatinous cube and using alchemical reagents to like stabilize it and turn it into a tiny gummy that like has beneficial effects. I feel like if you were to just like do that, like you would just like burn your throat with acid, which is not a fun thought. I would maybe be open to letting them do like a quick alchemy or something.
Right, I was gonna say no cost for
Cannot.
Yeah, like I feel like that would make more sense. Where essentially they take the ingredient that is right there and turn it into a stable form that is safe to eat, then maybe
So,
fine. Like, I feel like honestly that would make more sense. Like a free.
There we go.
Could
reagent.
Could they then react to it? You know, you should. I'm gonna petition to add engulf to the trigger. So that if you were inside a gelatinous cube, you could then create a gummy and then eat it. And so you would turn into goo, so you could get out. Like, I don't know if that will actually work. I don't know that helps you at all. I don't really think about
Who knows?
it, but that would
Maybe,
be hilarious. That would be a real cool GM move.
Maybe I'll add it in an update. Who knows?
No, I'm mostly teasing, but that is a funny move. That's all right.
Yeah, it's fun.
Just wanted to put out some silly, but
the campsite meal list. I love that you dropped that in here, and yeah, here is that legendary.
Yep.
You went top to bottom on the level items for the food at the end here, all the way to.
Wanted to make sure it was
zeros through
convenient.
20.
Yep. Oh, that's an
To be
old
honest,
copy. It doesn't have the updated versions, but yeah.
Oh shoot!
Not everything's hyperlinked, but that's okay.
Because I grabbed this too soon.
Nightmare salt.
Nightmare salt is such a insane item.
Oh, it's honestly pretty amazing. Like, I'm not gonna lie. This is Frightened 3 for 1.4 hours.
No, Nightmare salt is scary.
That's what I'm
my
afraid
goodness.
like my sister-in-law got me like salt from Iceland volcanoes. That's what I'm afraid nightmare salt is. I don't want to use it.
It's
Yeah,
like
who knows?
Himalayan salt, except it's from the nightmare realm.
Yeah.
You have to literally go there to get it.
I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Well, I love this book.
Mhm.
I mean, again, day one purchase, no brainer, like cover top to bottom, still the high quality Conner work that, you know, we can now come to respect with the Glory and Unleashed line. So it's really exciting to see
Thank you so
your
much.
launches go so well with becoming an Infinite Master. So I guess the next question is like, where are you headed after these? Like, what's your next stop on Glory and Unleashed?
Well, I have a number of things on my plate at the moment that I'm kind of juggling, and a good number of them are actually collaborations, so I'm not going to say anything about those. But when it comes to Galarian Unleashed, I do have like 2 projects that I'm kind of like sort of working on at the same time. One of them, and obviously take this with a grain of salt, who knows, at some point, I'm, because one of them's for Rage of Elements, and then, I might get that book and then end up being like, oh, they already did it first, so who knows. But that one,
Been there. I know that feel. It
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, take it with a grain of salt, but the first one that I'm working on is Elementalist Unleashed, because that is the class archetype that everybody has opinions on, and I understand, because it has so much potential to live up to, but unfortunately misses the mark in some areas. And I just think also for being class archetype, there's a lot of really cool things we could do with it, and that's part of what I want to do for Rage of Elements. And the other one is actually Anadi Unleashed, because I have like 2 kind of Anadi themed archetypes in mind that I've already written up, and I think it'd be cool to sort of expand on an existing archetype just a little bit rather than creating a new one like just from scratch. So those are the 2 that I have for Galarian Unleashed. Hopefully both of those, like, you'll get to see them at some point. My goal is that hopefully, both of them will release. The only thing I see, like I said, stopping that is that like Rage of Elements comes out and then they just like do like 90% of what I was already planning with Elementalist Unleashed, and then I'm like, okay, fine, never mind.
Well, so you'll just say great minds think alike.
Exactly.
At least she'll know you did you're in the right.
Yeah, exactly.
It should reinforce your feelings on your own right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, as we're wrapping up here, is there something that you want to shout out?
Honestly, there's a lot of people I'd love to shout out, and if I did that, I'd be here all day. But I think if I had to be specific, I'd
Day's
probably
almost
say
done.
Tony and Derry from Teams Plus. Like, I
Oh.
literally would not be here without them. And also the group that I got to collaborate with for like my first collaboration, they made Orc Strong together.
Oh.
I'm also really grateful for all of y'all. You've been extremely welcoming and like supportive, and I'm very happy to be here, honestly. Plus, you all do really cool work. Though, I mean, in the
Thanks
nature
for
of a shout
collabing
out, I
with
guess if I had to
us.
pick a specific thing, I'd probably just say like Impossible Lands Plus. Just 'cause, like,
Oh, that's such a kind thing to say, because
Yes.
I believe Helen and I were both involved with that one.
yeah,
So.
I mean, you were. I'm not just saying that because you're my friends. Like, I genuinely do love that book. I think it's just super cool to see collaborations because really, really good stuff comes out of it. And I'm just a sucker for books like that, where like it was like a grab bag of a bunch of different things, but really interesting things from all over the Impossible Lands region, from like the Ebon Mausoleum archetype to like.
I was gonna say that
different
one in
stuff.
particular, that your love for Elementalist, I was like, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Connor gave us really great insights.
Yeah, I made you guys rewrite half the thing. Sorry.
Yeah,
Rewrite
you helped us.
is one way to put it.
It came out
just
strong
should have
before,
talked
so
to you.
we
Could have
count-
saved a few days.
Yeah,
It's
that's
okay.
very.
No, it was good. It was good. I really, yeah. Just talk to Connor
wait, you were the
first.
one who wrote that, actually?
Helen was.
Yep, that was me.
Oh, I never like I didn't actually know who wrote what specifically. I just knew that like a group worked on it. So that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I explained to Helen that you frequently you read large portions near the end of projects, and then you point out things that are so obviously needs adjustments that you know you have to do it. But you're like, dang it, like.
Yeah, and I'm always like I always feel bad where
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't have to change this, but if you have time,
No, it was great.
Or I'll be like really nitpicky because I'm like very good at pointing out patterns. Where I'll be like,
I love it.
This sounds like wrong, but I won't say it like that. I'll just be like, this needs tweaking because this might be more easily understood like this.
Mhm.
I'm very picky about things like that, but I'm very glad that you all, I don't know,
It
just
was good.
understand that I'm not doing it to be mean or anything, because I
No,
love your
no.
guys' work.
Feedback's
and I'm so
great,
glad that I
man.
just get to like help it
It
be the
comes
best it
out
can be.
better.
Mhm.
I think Mausoleum, I think Helen really like landed that one for sure.
Oh yeah,
So-
no, especially with like the page space that you guys saved that allowed you to add extra features,
Exactly.
especially,
It was like, well, I
familiars.
guess I can write two
The
things
familiars,
after
I was gonna
this.
say.
Yeah, like no, like it got so much cooler. I was like, there's that little bit of like,
And I can do
vindicated
this,
like
and I
pride
can
of
do
like,
this, and I can
see,
do
look
this.
how cool it is.
Mhm. And you made that happen. Thank you.
You did it too. I
I'm
mean,
sorry, I
you know.
never like
So-
thanked you afterwards directly.
No, no,
Jeez.
you're fine.
I never
mean,
thought
honestly,
about that because we weren't talking at the time.
We didn't really talk that much back then, so it's
No.
okay. Now we do though.
Yes.
I always try to keep the writing team not away from the playtesters.
I
but
know.
if they want to keep their distance, they can. Just
Totally
in case.
understandable.
You're the kind. You're one of the kind ones. There's others that are a little more. They're not unkind.
They're very passionate, and that passion can
Passionate.
sometimes lead to people being very blunt, and it can
Passionate.
sometimes hurt feelings, which I try to be as kind as I can be when giving critique, because as somebody who goes through art school and has been through their own fair share
That's
of good
right.
and bad critique sessions, I know how amazingly valuable good critique can be, and how difficult it can be when like people are just like not like really wording it really constructively.
Sure.
So yeah.
Well, we are so grateful to have you on the show.
Thank
did
you.
Yes. Thank
some
you, Connor.
amazing books that we dropped 2 of them in chat. Is there any other? Where can we find? Can we find you on any socials? Like where
Yeah.
would be
Okay.
the best?
So, one of
we've
the
got
links
his
that you
card in
dropped
there.
with like my card, it basically just has most of my socials on it. It actually technically links to my portfolio, and on that, it links to a bunch of different places. But if you look up like Lonesome Chunk or Lonesome Chunk 44 on like Instagram or Twitter, you'll probably find me. And obviously, like if you're in a Pathfinder 2nd Edition Discord, I'm probably there working somewhere. Just maybe not all the time, but I'll be there. So if you're looking to find me elsewhere, you can either try to just look up my name directly through like Lonesome Chunk 44, or you can go through that link on the card, and there's like some section that there's little icons you can click that'll send you to my different socials and such. So that should hopefully help with it.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that we couldn't have gotten luckier for having a brand new. We had both of the latest Infinite Masters in a row, so it's nice to get. And we're very excited to see what you do in the future. I think right now the best place to find products from Conner is Pathfinder Infinite. Hit those up in chat. We don't have an outro. Today was the first day of the intro, so we'll figure that out. But Conner Berkheiser, Infinite Master, check out all of the awesome Cooking Unleashed and Galarian Unleashed and Minotaurs Unleashed where you can on Pathfinder Infinite. And Helen, you want to close us out?
Okay. Thank you for joining us, folks, and see you in 2 weeks where we talk about Queer Finder with Grady from Gallant Goblin.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye, folks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.